Hi everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ali, here today to do another unhaul. This will be my last unhaul for the year. It's almost the end of the year now. And yeah, I have a few. Late in about mid-November, I went through all of my books and I was a little brutal because really just out of room at this point, and I was just feeling a bit overwhelmed and stressed by what I had on my shelves. So I went through and I majorly cleaned it, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, honestly. I may do it again before the end of the year. I am filming this like 3 weeks ahead of time because I wanted to be able to get rid of these books, and yeah, so I may tack on the end of this video if I do go through and take out any more, but we're going to jump into it otherwise. We have a Fletchy here who I'm sure will run away once I start moving things, but he's here for now. First up, I want to actually talk about a bunch of TBR books that I'm going to get rid of. Most of this haul are red ones, but I do have this little selection here. So let's jump into it. First up, I have The Edge of 13 by Nova Wheatman. This is a contemporary middle grade. I spoke about it in my last unhaul when I unhauled another one of Nova Wheatman's books. That contemporary middle grade just isn't for me, and I just feel like this is one that some kid somewhere will really, it might change their lives. It might be the book that gets them, that makes them fall in love with reading, and there's no point it sitting on my shelves unread. It is also a signed copy, so yeah, I just think that someone somewhere will really appreciate this. Next, I have Wink Poppy Midnight by April Genevieve Chicholke. I bought this one, I think I bought it secondhand for a couple of dollars earlier in the year, and when I was looking through my shelves, I was like, do I actually want this? I had a quick look on Goodreads, and there aren't really any good reviews of it, like, at all. And it's just, I don't know why I picked it up. It's not the sort of thing that I like to read, so it's gonna go. Okay, next one is My Year Zero by Rachel Gold. I bought this one last year to read sort of during Pride Month. I believe it is, I think it's Bisexual Rep, and I was very excited, and then it took forever to get here, and then I was just reading the back of it while I was cleaning things up, and I was like, I don't know that I actually care about this at all. I think it's just a contemporary sort of thing. I don't think it's necessarily like a romance-based sort of thing or anything like that, and that doesn't really sound like my jam. Next, I have My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagate Kabi. This is a memoir. I don't know that I can really show you that much in there. That seems like a safe page. There you go. Yeah, I think I bought this around the same time, and I just sort of, in the last, year and a half, realized that I do really struggle with graphic novels. There are a few that I like, but I don't know. The art style in this one just doesn't work for me. Like, even looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I am gonna get so confused by what is happening. So yeah, gonna move this one on. Next, I have Float Plan by Trish Dola. Bought this one very on a whim one day after work, and I read some of it, and I don't know, again, I was just looking at it on my shelves and I was like, I'm probably never going to finish that and might as well just move it on. Okay, this one might cause some controversy and sadness, but I decided to unhaul Iron Widow because this is by Zeren J. Zhao. I started this one at the very start of this year, like in the very first couple of days of the year, and I read a lot of it and then I put it down and I never came back to it, and it's just been sitting on my shelf and I haven't really thought about it other than being like, that's a book that I own. So I just don't think I'm going to come back to it. And I also just feel like this is a pretty big title. If in, a couple of months, a couple of years, I suddenly feel really interested in this again, I'm sure I can get it from the library or as an ebook or something like that. And I just don't think I need it physically. So there's that one. And then finally, I have a duology. I have read the first one, which is Cryer's War, an Iron Heart by Nina Farella. I'm not sure. I really liked first book. I really enjoyed the first book, but I read this one at the very end of last year and I have not picked this one up. And I have not thought about picking it up, which makes me think that I don't really need these, because if I wanted to, I would have read this immediately. There's no reason as to why I didn't. And I haven't picked it up in it's almost been an entire year and I haven't picked it up. So yeah, those are gonna go. So yes, that is the little stack of unread TBR books. And now I have a pretty ginormous stack of read ones. That pile was about half of them. So let's just get into it. Starting up, I have Devotion by Hannah Kent. I read this one during Eurovision-a-thon and it was one of the most disappointing and just like, yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't what I was expecting, and it went in a very weird direction and I didn't really like that part of it. The thing with this one is that if I want to reread it, Hannah Kent is an Australian author. I'm sure I'll be able to find her easily, and I can always just replace this with the smaller version if I decide I really, really want it all of a sudden. I have 100 Days by Alice Pung. I honestly don't even remember when I read this one, but I really, really enjoyed it at the time. But I'm just never going to reread it, and it's not one that I feel a connection to. Like, I really enjoyed it, but I don't necessarily feel nostalgic or it's just not one of the books that I'm like, yeah, I need that. Even if I don't reread it, I need it, and this just isn't one of them. I have Stone Sky Gold Mountain by Miranda Rual. I loved Miranda Rual's first book, which was a short story called The Fish Girl, which I still own, but this was her first sort of novel. I was a little disappointed in it. I've read it twice now, and I enjoyed it a little more the second time, but I just don't imagine that I'll get anything out of it if I were to read it again. And also the chances of me reading a book 3 times is very slim. So yeah, I just thought I would move this one on. Again, a lot of these, well, the next 3 at least are all Australian authors. So again, they're more accessible in libraries and things like that. so I can get this again if I want it. Okay, so I have The Coconut Children by Vivian Pham. I loved this one. It was fantastic. But again, I think I read this the very beginning of 2020. Actually, maybe a little later in the year. I think this was the first book I ever reviewed on my blog. Previously, I'd always been co-blogging with other people, and then have my own solo blog now. I think this was the first one I reviewed. I really enjoyed it, but again, I just don't see myself rereading it. I have Ordinary Matter by Laura Elfrey. Again, this is actually short stories, and these are based around or inspired by the 20 female winners of the Nobel Prize. And I really liked it. I don't even really like short stories, but I really enjoyed this. I haven't thought about it since I read it, though. It's just been sitting at the back of my shelves. I just don't see myself rereading them again. Someone else will enjoy these. And I have Below Deck by Sophie Hardcastle, which I also really, really loved. But this was a lot emotionally, and I remember when I finished this, very emotional and very, I sobbed for a good half an hour after reading this book. It was just really intense and beautiful, but traumatic. And that I did it once, and I don't think I could do it again. But someone out there might feel the need to be traumatized. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a warning of this book. This will ruin you, but you will enjoy it. I don't know. Okay, then I randomly had 3 classics that I decided to get rid of. I have Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. This was in, this was part of the McGrath Foundation special thing with Penguin, which I think is just Australian based, but they raise money and awareness for breast cancer. My mum bought me this one probably when I was about 15 or so, and I read it at the time. I'm a big fan of Audrey Hepburn. I loved the movie, so I read the book, didn't really enjoy it, and then I studied the book later in uni, still didn't really enjoy it, and I don't know why I kept it. I didn't hate it. I don't know. I vaguely enjoyed it, but I don't think I really need it anymore. Okay, next I have The Awakening by Kate Chopin. I read this last year. I'm kind of tossing up between keeping this one because I didn't love the story, but this does have an introduction by Carmen Maria Machado, who I absolutely love, and I am highly considering keeping it for that. It's a tiny introduction, but I love her so much. So I don't know, I think I'm going to put this one aside and see what I think. It's a short enough little book that I feel like maybe I would reread it, and maybe I'd get more out of it. I don't know. I think this one might end up back on my shelves. But it's fine. I've read it, so it's not adding to my TBR. And then I have The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I've read this twice now. Really enjoyed it both times, but I just don't really feel like I need a copy of this. I bought this one secondhand, and it's It's in really good condition, but yeah, I've read it 2 times now, and I think if it's something that I choose to reread, I'll get it as an ebook. But I think I'd be interested in exploring some of Alice Walker's other things before I would come back to this. Okay, last stack here. Let's go. I have The Mothers by Brit Bennett. I read this one earlier this year. I loved Brit Bennett's The Vanishing Half. That is one of my top books, and I still own my copy of that, but I didn't love this one. I just don't see myself coming back to it, so I'm gonna pass this one on. Okay, I have some YA here. This is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This is a Les Mis retelling. I loved this. I really did. So much so that I read it as a library book, and then I went and I bought myself a copy. Only, I think that was in 2020 now. And I haven't really thought of this since. And also, I believe the sequel is out, and I just have not even considered picking that up. So, I just don't see myself circling back to this one. Peter Lyra's Reading Normal by Anna Whately. I read this one earlier this year as well, and I liked this. It was alright. This follows Peter Lyra, who is on the spectrum, and there's a bit of a sapphic romance and some good friendship things, and Anna Whately is also on the spectrum, so that part was really interesting. I didn't like the romance. I thought her girlfriend was awful and I hated her. So I don't see myself coming back to this one. But again, I think this is one of those books that someone out there, this would really mean something to them, and there's no point in it sitting unread or sitting read on my shelves and I'm never going to come back to it. I feel the same about quite a few of these books, including This Is How We Changed the Ending by Vicky Wakefield, which again was fantastic. I absolutely loved this. This follows a young guy, and he's sort of living in some pretty awful conditions, both sort of physically, his family don't have a lot of money, but also his family is not that great, and it's kind of about changing things, changing the ending, it was fantastic, but I don't think I'm going to come back to it. And again, I think that there's just someone out there who needs this book, and I should say that I'm donating these all to little free libraries. So I'm hoping that, eventually this book will get into someone's hands who really needs it. Okay. I have A Million Junes by Emily Henry. I loved this a lot when I read it, but it was so long ago. I think it was 2018. It's so long ago that it has the sticker for the old bookshop that I used to work in, and I left there in 2019. So it's been a while since I read it. This is sort of a YA contemporary with some magical realism elements, which is not really, I don't know, apparently at one time it was my thing, but definitely isn't anymore. I'm just not going to reread this. Okay, I have The Bone Witch by Rin Chapeko. I got rid of books 2 and 3 in an unhaul a couple of months ago, and I finally pulled out book 1 from my shelves. I really liked this when I read it, but I have no interest in continuing it, and I'm not going to reread it just to read the first book again. That makes no sense. So that one's going. I have The Henna Wars by Abdia Shagadar. I also really like this one. This is a sapphic romance, and yeah, it was cute, but again, just don't think I'm going to reread it. It's a YA contemporary, just not really reading those these days, and yeah, I don't know, it's a beautiful book, someone will enjoy it. Okay, last two, I have The Yield by Tara June Winch. I absolutely loved this one as well, but I don't think I'm going to come back to it. And again, I just think that there are people out there who would really enjoy this. Again, this is an Australian author. It's quite a popular one. So if I want to read it, I'll come back to it via the library or whatever. Okay, and finally, I have Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. Now, this is one of my favorite books of all time. I don't really talk about it these days. It's been a really long time since I read it. But a few, I don't know, maybe at the start of this channel, I would talk about this all the time. And I decided to unhaul this copy because I got a box set of Ruta Sepetys' works, all 4 of them, and this cover doesn't match with those, and this was in the box set. And I just don't need 2 copies of it, and it's just such a beautiful book, and I think that it deserves a new life. So I will definitely be reading it, hopefully next year, in my new copy, but this one is going to go out into the world and hopefully be loved and cried over as much as I loved and cried over it. So that's all of them. There might be an extra clip here, we'll see, and otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I'm sorry if any of these broke your heart, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And that's it. I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.